What's up, you guys? American, welcome back to my channel. No, you grow up. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about some figures that I'm really excited to talk about, and honestly, kind of caught me off guard this year. And it's not like I didn't know these figures were coming or anything like that. It's just that they came from a company that I haven't really expected anything out of since I've gotten back into collecting as an adult. And of course, the company we're talking about is Playmates. Outside of the last Ronin figure, they haven't really given me anything that I've been excited about personally as a modern collector. And it's really sad that I feel that way about Playmates because they were the company that put TMNT on the map. I think you could argue that they might be the most important piece of the pie. I know I'm not trying to disrespect Eastman or Laird or the original comics or anything like that, but they probably would have stayed an underground hit without this toy line in the cartoon going so gangbusters like they did. What Playmates has been doing with their modern figures is kind of just rehashing those same figures that came out in like 2012. They're like the 6-inch, 7-inch figures or whatever they are with the updated articulation. And for 2012, I'm sure they weren't bad figures, but for today, compared to NECA, Super 7, any other company that's pretty much making turtles, those figures are awful, and I do not have any of them in my collection. I'm not trying to hate on you if you have them. If you enjoy them, great, but those figures just do nothing for me. They've doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on those figures, putting them in numerous 2-packs with Street Fighter figures, Stranger Things figures. They've ran just regular comic book versions by themselves, and no matter what they seem to do with those, I am not interested in them at all. Ever since the Origins line came out, everyone has been clamoring for Playmates to do the same thing, but even though I would still say that the Origins line did it better, I still love these Playmates figures. So clearly the figures that I want to talk about are the first Sketch Turtles and then the remastered 88 Turtles. I was much more excited for the 88 remastered Turtles than I was the original Sketch Turtles, but after opening up the Sketch Turtles, I liked them way more than I thought I was going to. So I'm not going to make you look at my ugly face anymore. We're going to start taking a look at these figures. I'm going to let you guys know why I'm so excited and happy with what Playmates did with these figures. Alright, you guys, so I'm going to kind of give you my overall thoughts on both these sets, and then we're going to look at each one of them individually. But the first thing I want to say is this is just what I want Playmates to do. Playmates does not need to compete directly with NECA or Super 7. They don't need to try to make 6-inch action figures that are like collector scale. What they need to do is make toys that are fun for not just kids but adults as well, and that's what they did here, and this has me excited in a completely different way than I get for like NECA or Super 7 or even the Mezco figures that we got this year. I feel like these figures are just the perfect essence of what Playmates is as a company. They just make fun, ridiculous action figures. You can play with them, you can move them around, you don't feel like they're gonna break, and they still have a lot of fun and a lot of attitude. I stated in the intro that I was more excited about the 88 Turtles, and I do like that set better. But when I opened up the first Sketch Turtles, I was shocked how much I enjoyed them. Like, this design is so silly and stupid the way it was intended to be, and I think that made for some great action figures. But it's definitely not just all sunshine and rainbows with these figures. I have some nitpicks. They're both far from perfect, but like I said, they are fun, and that's where I feel like Playmates just nailed the assignment. So first up, we'll look at the Sketch Turtles, and then we'll end it with the 88 remasters. Alright, so the first thing that I want to say about this set is that I was originally going to pass on these. I'm really trying to focus in on what I'm collecting, and I'm really trying to just focus on collecting things that have some sort of nostalgic value to me, because that's the stuff that I tend to like the longest, and it's the stuff that seems to last the test of time in my collection. The majority of other stuff that I've just bought because it's cool or fun has been sold up to this point, and even though this is based off something very iconic, I just told myself it wasn't something that I needed. But then I saw these guys in the store, they had the whole set, so I had to get them, and I'm really glad I did, because like I said, this set surprised me a lot. It is way more fun than I ever would have expected it to be, and that just did something for me that, again, I wasn't really expecting. I wasn't expecting anything great out of these Playmate sets, so I feel like that's why I'm just extra excited about it, as they surprised me, and these figures just ended up being a lot of fun, and I'm really glad I went in on the set. The one thing I forgot to talk about up to this point is they all come with these stands that link together to make kind of like a dio scene, and that's just another nice touch. It not only adds value to the pack, but when it comes to displaying these figures, I feel like it does just add a little bit extra too. And even though it's arguably more simple and basic, I like these stands a little bit better than the ones from the 88 8 remastered turtles. They all came with this leaky ooze canister piece, but I'm just using the one in my display. Taking a look at these turtles themselves, they're all the same sculpt, they're all the same mold. They do have a little bit of variation in their head sculpt, so like Leo has this version of the smirk, Donnie's is the opposite, and then Raph and Mikey have the same head sculpt. There is a little bit of variation difference in their bandanas. They do go in different directions, and I do appreciate how they kept the coloring the same as the 88 turtles. It's one of my favorite parts about the original turtles, so it just, I don't know, anytime I see toy turtles, it just resonates with me when they're all the different shades. I like my Raph being the brightest, I like my Donnie being the darkest, and Mikey and Leo falling in between. The feet on the figures are hollowed out, which definitely does make them feel a little bit cheap and light, but that's really my only nitpick as far as that's concerned. The rest of the figures do feel pretty solid. Even though they're really small through this area of the shoulder and the upper arm, these joints still feel really good. They have pretty good articulation. They go 360 degrees around, in and out at that hinge joint there. The legs do have weird articulations. If you can see up in there, they do have the hinge joint, and it is on a swivel as well, but just the way their legs are structured and the way their feet are, you can't really do a whole lot with the lower body articulation. But the wrist and elbow swivels up top give you a lot that you can do with the upper body, so while they're nowhere near the articulation of a lot of modern figures, they are still pretty good for toys. I'd give the articulation like a solid C on these. It's not going to blow you away, but it's definitely enough to pass. One thing that I never actually noticed about the original drawing is that Raph does have a sword on his back, which is kind of funny. They were all drawn with their original weapons that they ended up having, but for some reason Raph just has this extra sword. I guess they thought maybe the size were just too defensive and not enough for offense, so they had that as a backup. Interesting little detail that, like I said, I never even would have actually noticed on the original drawing, so it's cool that they included it on this figure. Donnie's belt goes over the top, which is nice, and I wish Leo's did as well. He has those weird scabbards on his back, and I wish it would have been something a little bit more traditional, but again, I understand it's based off the drawing. Eastman and Laird definitely weren't thinking about action figures at the time. And again, I like how Donnie is this dark, almost brown color. While it does feel like extremely cheap metal, I'm pretty sure these chains are actually metal, which is nice. Everyone knows the worst part about Mikey's original nunchucks is they broke so easy, so nice they actually put a little bit of effort into these nunchucks. And the chain, even if it's not metal, it just always looks better than the solid plastic. But again, it's nice that they put a little bit of effort into these. I touched on their belts earlier, and Mikey doesn't even have a belt, which is super weird because he just holds his nunchucks on his forearms there. Not sure what this little cut in the plastic is. I never actually noticed that before. If anybody knows what's going on there, if it has to do with the construction of the figure, maybe let me know. And last but not least, always nice when they add the dick tails. I can understand why those didn't end up making it in the final cuts for the designs, but I do like that they included it on these figures like it was on the drawing. So this was a really awesome set. Like I said, just way more fun than I expected it to be. I'm really glad that the colored version ones are the ones that came to retail. I definitely like them more than the black and white versions. If you come across these guys, they are definitely a high recommend for me, and that's coming from somebody that was originally going to pass on them. Are these the greatest figures that have came out in the last year? Absolutely not. But they are some of the most fun in my opinion, especially for the price point. Playmates, I got to give you credit on these. You definitely did something right here. All right, you guys, so like I said, this was the set that I was really excited to get. This is essentially what we've all wanted ever since the Origin lines came out. We've just wanted Playmates to do the same thing, just take their original figures, give them better articulation, and instead Playmates just keeps giving us the same molds that they've given us for years over and over and over. And I know I'm part of the problem. I still buy those figures, but we've wanted something different for a long time, and they finally gave it to us. So I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room right off the bat. I'm not a fan of the pock marks, the trend scarring they got going on. I don't know why they made that unnecessary change, but that's all I'm really going to say about it, because I'm sure that's been everyone's #1 complaint. I thought it was going to be a lot more off-putting, and once I got these figures, it didn't really bother me as much as I thought it would. And I think it's just because I like these figures even more than I thought I would. Again, they are far from perfect. Even though they have updated articulation, I have a lot of nitpicks with some of the choices they made with that articulation. But as far as the figures themselves go, they look pretty damn good. Like, they just do a great job of hitting you with that nostalgia. Like, it feels very similar to the original figures, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, this is definitely something new. It's definitely something a little bit, I'm not going to say better, but it's a fun change. The shoulder articulation is pretty decent. You get the 360 pivot around. You got the hinge to go in and out. They have a hinge and swivel at the elbow, which is nice. Wrist swivel. The grip on their weapons is pretty decent. My one major nitpick is the lower body articulation. So they do have the pivot at the hip, but the hinge joint is on the front part of the leg, which is just a weird choice. To me, it just seems like it would make more sense to have it on the side. So like to get them to straddle, you have to like kick their leg out a little bit, and I feel like it just adds awkwardness to the articulation, especially since they have an ankle swivel. That's just where like I feel like they really could have done a little bit better with the articulation, is giving it the ankle rocker and not just the swivel. The knee swivels and has the hinge, so that's pretty good there, but it's just the hip and the ankle that kind of, like I said, just break the articulation on this figure a little bit. So again, with the articulation, I'd probably call it a C. Like the effort's there, it's definitely an improvement, but it's nothing like if you're messing with an import figure or anything like that. And also, I know I'm ripping on the articulation a bit here. I know NECA and Super 7 are definitely not known for their articulation either, so I feel like kind of crappier articulation is something we've come to get used to with Turtles figures. I don't feel like anybody will ever get close to SH Figure Arts in that department. But again, do I expect these $12 Playmates figures to compete with, I mean, I don't even know what the SH Figure Arts retailed for at the time, but do I expect them to be on the same level of articulation? Absolutely not. I'm just glad to see a little bit of effort here and something different. Another nitpick I do have, I don't know why they changed the faces on Leo and Donnie. So as you can see, they gave Leo the Donnie face for some reason. I don't know why they decided to do that. And again, it's nothing that breaks the figures for me, but I wish they would have kept their head sculpts, the original ones, and then just hold them side by side so you can see they're in the same size ballpark, and they do just feel very similar with just, like I said, just feeling like it's something new at the same time. To me, I feel like he feels like the most true to the original form. Even has the hand dagger holster on the back, which is awesome. So just like with the original Turtles, the new Raph is definitely my favorite of the four. He always had my favorite head sculpt. He was my favorite positioned out of the original one. And I know the new ones are all exactly the same, but still definitely my favorite one. Like I said earlier, he's got the Leo head sculpt instead of the original Donnie head sculpt. But other than that, he feels pretty Donnie-like. Looks pretty good. Belt looks pretty good. Now, I can't remember right off the top of my head if he came with a second bow staff. It seems like I would have tucked it in the back if they did. I always liked using both of them for my original Donnie. In my head, it always just made sense. Seems like his bow staff could break easily, and having a backup would always come in handy. As you can see, my original Mikey's nunchucks have been glued back together because, like I said, they break very easily. And now we got these nice metal nunchucks on the newer Turtles. Like I said, greatly appreciated. Huge upgrade with the weapons. I do like the paint on the weapons. I didn't really touch on that much, but I like how they're colored to their Turtles. And it seems like with the updates, they could have colored in the teeth on the smaller mouth side, but it is just one other thing that kind of makes it feel like the original a little bit more. So I feel like Mikey kind of hits the second closest to home after Raph. Again, having the original head sculpts on them just definitely does something for me. Mikey's nunchucks were definitely hard to get in the holsters. I tried doing it, just, I don't know, it felt like they were going to rip when you try to take them out, so I probably won't be sticking them back there again. Just like it's a bad idea to keep them on the old school one, because that's how they end up breaking. Just leave them in there for too long and they'll end up snapping on you. So are these guys going to be my top figures of the year? Probably not, but that doesn't mean they're not some of my favorite figures from the year. When I'm making my top 10 list at the end of the year, I try to use, I don't know, more objectivity than I should be using. At the end of the day, it is my list. I probably should be able to make it as subjective as possible. And it is hard to compare things like this, like I said, to NECA or Super 7 directly. It's hard to compare a $12 thing to a $35 to $55 thing. So if we're talking bang for your buck, these guys definitely did kill it. These guys definitely did do things for me that more expensive figures did not do. They were just fun, and to me, that's really important. So these guys are without a doubt a high recommend for me. I have a hard time believing they're not going to be super readily available at some point. I'm definitely going to pick up a second set if I see them again out there, because these are something special to me. Like I said earlier, they're not really quite on par with Origins, but they are an improvement. They are an effort. They are just, I don't know, just kind of proof that Playmates is listening and they do at least care a little bit. So hopefully this is just a good sign for things to come. I'm pretty sure at Comic-Con they said that they had maybe like Bebop and Rocksteady lined up or something like that as well. So even if they do just trickle out slowly, I hope they still do keep giving us more of these figures with the old school designs with the modern articulation. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. I haven't got to do a video like this in a while, so it was a lot of fun. I want to start breaking up my content a little bit more instead of just doing the opening videos. I feel like I've just been doing nothing but opening videos lately, so I want to start mixing it up and doing stuff like I used to do. Just doing videos where I just talk about what I think the entire time, or talking about very specific figures like this. For some reason, I feel like there's videos I feel like I have to make even though nobody's making me do anything. It's my channel and I can do whatever I want. So that's what I need to remember. That's what I need to start focusing on, is just doing the things that I want to do and not the things I feel like I have to do. But that's all I got for you guys in this one. So take it easy, be safe, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.